Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Dose, where we explore mental health, wellness, psilocybin, and all kinds of other tools and resources that we all are looking to utilize in our lives. Today, I am very excited to have Dr. Karin Calde on my program. Karin and I met a couple of years ago at a networking event for Beaverton Chamber, and we immediately hit it off. I had just started my psilocybin practice, and Karin was very curious and interested and wanted to learn more. And today, she is also a practicing psilocybin facilitator. Her background is in therapy, and currently she has a thriving practice doing couples coaching. And I'm really excited to have her join us. So, Karin, welcome to the show. Did I do that justice? Is there anything you want to add?
Sure. Yeah. First of all, to say that, my last name is not a common one. It's actually Karin Calde.
Oh,
You
sorry.
say the A. No, it's okay. And yeah, I became a psychologist or therapist many years ago. And I worked in private practice for a little while, helping people in various ways, doing a lot of work with postpartum moms, but also in those with anxiety primarily. And so that had been my focus, but really didn't have the kind of support that I needed. And also just needed to do some more of my own work so that I could really show up in the way that I wanted to for my clients at that time, and
Mm,
realized if I was going to be helping people with stress and overwhelm, like so many of my clients were dealing with, and I needed to take care of my own. So I ended up closing my practice and focused on my parenting and my own mental health. And then I ended up coming back as a relationship coach because I realized that was what I was most passionate about, is the relationships in my life. And I put so much attention to that area of my life. And I also discovered psilocybin along the way. And that really helped me with my focus as well. Um, and so now what I'm really excited about is working with both couples and individuals in midlife, especially women who are in transition, are feeling stuck in their relationships. But really, yeah, I really love working with people to figure things out, whether it's couples or individuals.
yes, awesome. Which is how well, that's also where Karin and I are excited to collaborate because together we're offering a special couples retreat specifically targeted at midlife couples who are going through transition and maybe entering the next chapter of their life. Kind of wake up and are looking at each other. Maybe they're empty nesters are like, wait, who are you again? Right. And it's kind of that natural transition at that point of life for couples to kind of come back together and figure out how do we want to deepen our relationship? How do we want to expand on, the years that we have together, and how do we want to move forward together? And what's the vision for our future? And so yeah, I thought it would be great to have Karin on and talk a little bit about typical struggles that she sees in her practice with couples at that stage of life, and how both energy work and psilocybin may, support in that time of life. And as you all know, if you've been listening to the podcast, last month I try to do a theme every month on my social media and my content and my blogs. And last month was talking a lot about burnout. And so Karin and I, it's funny, in preparing for this show, I had created an outline, and, just to get her input and make sure we're on the same page and know what we're going to talk about. And I had used terminology like burnout in relation to, a marriage or a relationship, a long-term relationship. And she was like, hey, I've never heard that before. So, I think it's great that like people from different perspectives and different backgrounds, I really believe that, burnout can seep into the relationship. And that's actually what it does. Like, I think we think a lot about burnout in relation to work, but honestly, what really happens is it depletes your energy, right? When we're not living in alignment to who we are, um, and not taking care of ourselves, and we get into that burnout stage and overwhelm, we don't have good energy to show up for anything, let alone ourselves, but let alone our relationships. And so I think it's, a fun new way of thinking about that to help people kind of really connect with their day to day and how that really impacts other parts of their lives. And our health is holistic, right? But anyway, so what kind of challenges do you see a lot of midlife couples struggling with?
Yeah, and I just also want to say, I really do appreciate you talking about it in that way. You have such a rich background in the business world where
Mm,
burnout is, a really important thing to be aware of and stay on top of,
mhm,
and yet we try to oftentimes compartmentalize our lives.
mhm.
Work is over here and our personal lives are over here, but that's really not how we work as human beings. And certainly, if we're feeling burnout at work, that's going to affect us personally. And or I might think of that as something like you've grown apart, you're
Mhm.
disconnected, or you're not communicating well, or whatever it is, or they're dealing with fatigue or work stress. Um, yeah, that burnout absolutely can be applied to our personal lives, and for different reasons. So I think
Yeah,
that's really worthwhile to think of it in that way as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, thanks. Yeah, yeah. For me, it felt natural, so yeah.
yeah,
Um,
mhm.
no, I was gonna say, so yeah, speaking particularly to like that midlife couple who's maybe been together for at least a decade, maybe longer, has raised children together, possibly, or have created businesses together, or supported each other in their career journeys. What kind of struggles are you seeing with those types of couples? They might have a solid foundation, but they find themselves growing apart, and yeah, wanting
Yeah,
to reinvest in that relationship.
yeah. Well, first of all, I'll say that there are a lot of different pressures,
Mm,
especially during midlife, that can impact a relationship. So, yeah, it could be that the kids have just left the home, and all of a sudden you're looking at one another going, "Oh my god, who are
who are
you?"
you? Yeah.
After all this time, because you've been so focused on raising your kids and your jobs, and maybe your friendships or hobbies, whatever it is,
Hmm.
and now you have this time,
Yeah.
and you're sharing the space, just you and your partner, and so that can be something that happens. Also, this can be a time when people are, making a career shift. They're really stepping up in their career. They're really stepping into their own, and so there might be a shift there. A lot of people are caring for aging parents.
Mm.
Um, Also looking at retirement. That's not all that far away. What do I want my life to look like at that point? And then you put menopause on top of it
Right.
all.
Yeah.
And I mean, and that can be really significant as
Hmm.
well, as women enter this new life stage.
Yeah.
So,
Going through it right now.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it can be, and while, some women, it doesn't impact them very much, some people, um, it has a profound effect
Hmm.
on their well being and how they view life and themselves and everything. So, all of these things together, it's a
Yeah.
lot.
Well, and another one that I just thought of is end of life. I think at that point of our lives, a lot of times our own mortality comes in. It's no longer so far away, and possibly you start seeing friends or folks in your age bracket, um, having new diagnoses, or possibly dying, right? And so I think it that part of it also. starts to weigh in on your mind. And, if you're already high anxiety or other, you have other stresses. Yeah. And we don't like to think about that.
100%.
Yeah.
But and yet, that can also thinking about that can also be motivating to
Yeah,
really make the choices that you want to make, really go after what you want because you realize that your time on this earth isn't infinite.
that's
So
right.
that can
Yeah.
be a bit of a mixed blessing.
Yeah. Again, it's all about mindset too, and right, how you
Yeah,
look at it. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So the things that people come to me for, a lot of couples come to me saying, we're just trying to figure out if this can even work. We just feel really, really disconnected. Um, Oftentimes they'll say it's communication,
Mhm.
and sometimes that is what it is, and sometimes it's just about listening differently to one
Mm.
another or
Mm.
connecting. Some people are struggling with sex at this point.
Mhm.
Um, and that's an issue that is common at this stage of life. um yeah, those are some of the common things that people come to me with at this point. And especially those when I see individuals, I get a lot of people saying, I'm trying to figure out if I want to stay in this relationship. So that's another common thing.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what are now I know that you like to work with the energy index, right? And really help folks find awareness of how they're showing up for each other and how they're showing up for themselves, right? Can you talk a little bit about that and educate us and the audience on what that means and what that looks like, and also what are the other tools and resources that you use in your practice outside of psilocybin? I want to talk about that too, but outside of psilocybin, I'm curious.
Yeah, so the Energy Leadership Index is something that I learned about during my coach training, and is something that I use with a lot of my couples. Not everybody, because I have different approaches depending on the couple.
Sure.
But the Energy Leadership Index, or the ELI, is basically a way of kind of making tangible something that feels very intangible, and that's
Right.
you know our energy, or how we're actually showing up on a good day, and how we show up when we're under stress.
Hmm.
And so it might be that on a good day we show up and we are looking just to get our goals accomplished. We just want to get things done. We're able to push through. We're able to put aside any resentments or bad feelings toward other people, because we just want to get the job done, and that's the most important thing. Or it could be, and I'm just giving a couple of examples. It
Sure.
could be that we wake up every day, excited about the possibilities, and we really do see possibilities in everyone and every opportunity around us. There is really no such thing as failure, because it's just another opportunity
Mm.
to grow. So, and then there are actually 7 different levels that we've identified in the ELI, and when you are aware of how you typically show up and aware of the choices, then you gives you a lot of power. Then you can really approach these different situations with some more intention. How do I actually want to show up in this situation?
Yeah.
um
So
yeah.
I
Mhm.
what the audience doesn't know is that I actually got to do one of these energy assessments with Karen. And what I found super fascinating and had no real awareness of actually was how I show up when I'm under stress. Because we also probably have patterns that we don't even realize, that we kind of lean on, and how that impacts the relationship and the communication. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I found that really fascinating. That's not something like I know exactly what kind of energy I'm in when I'm in the up space, right? Um, uh, I don't know if other people feel that way. I feel like I know, yeah, I'm showing up with, good energy. It's, you're in a
Yeah.
flow state, and you're just moving with life. But when I'm in overwhelm or anxiety, or I have fear about something or worry, I hadn't really considered, what are my patterns there as far as the energy? And I thought that was so interesting.
Yeah. So, and I think that's really typical because when things are going well for us, we're more open minded. We're more curious. We're a little bit less judgmental, perhaps.
Mm.
And when we're in that kind of energy state, we are able to see things more clearly and see more possibilities. But when we're under stress, essentially, we're being triggered in some way. Like you
Mm.
said, maybe it's overwhelm, or maybe we are feeling like we're really stuck, or we're really angry, or something like that. And so that usually brings up some kind of block that we have, or some kind of trigger, and that releases these what we say, these catabolic hormones, such as
Mm.
adrenaline and cortisol. And when we're in that state, it's okay, because we're meant to feel stress, and
Mhm.
we're meant to use those hormones to help us push through and get through those situations. But when it's long term, that's when we can notice that we're not making the choices that we might otherwise make. We are not feeling as good as we might otherwise feel. We are not able to step into our leadership abilities so readily. Our relationships tend to suffer. And
Mhm.
it's because, again, when we're under stress, it's like we have these blinders on. And so it's
Right.
harder for us to see beyond that. And so it's easier to get stuck.
Yeah. No, fascinating. Yeah. And I think having the awareness of what you tend to do, like you said something to me really interesting in our consult after, like she helps you interpret your kind of your scores and things like that. Um, was, you might want to consider using these other I don't want to call them low level. What are they called? The
Yeah. So there are other levels of energy.
other
So,
levels.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so but, like, maybe, like, I don't like, if I recall correctly, I don't show up in anger as much, but there was other ones that I showed up in, and you're like, "Maybe you need to feel angry," right? And, like, I was like, "Oh, maybe I do need to get angry," like, I don't but that's what I found so fascinating is, like, we all can tap into all 7 of these
Yeah.
energy levels.
Yeah.
We often have a tendency in some areas, but they're always changing, right? You're not one thing for like, that's what you are and that's all you'll be. It's
Right.
constantly, yeah,
Involving. Yeah, it doesn't put you in a box. It shows
yeah.
you that you do have options. You do have some tendencies, but especially with coaching or
Hmm.
psilocybin or whatever it is, um, it really opens that door so that you have more choices, and you can see that you can show up in these different ways. And you can also see that there is no good or bad to things like emotions. Like, that's part of the human experience. We
Right.
feel them all, and they
Yeah.
all have their uses. They're all really important.
Yeah. And that we can't bypass them. I think it's when we bypass them and don't have awareness or want to address them, that's when chronic disease, chronic stress, burnout, whatever you want to call it, that's when that starts to develop. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm a really big proponent of this. You don't always get this with coaches, and maybe it's partly my therapy background, but
Mm.
I have seen this in my clients, and I've seen it in myself. Is that when we allow ourselves to feel our emotions instead of trying to say, "Oh, I shouldn't feel that," so and so has it so much worse, or
Right.
this
Yeah.
really isn't that bad, or I just don't want to feel this. This doesn't feel
Mhm.
good. What it ends up doing is it doesn't go away. It's
Mm.
just that it goes underground and ends up controlling us even more.
Oh, say
And
that. That was a good one. Say that again for the
yeah,
people in the
because if
back.
you don't really want it, but it's still there, then it's going to still eat at you, and it's still going to come up. It's like trying to keep a lid on a boiling pot. At some
Mhm.
point, it's going to break through, and not in the way that you want.
Right. Then you have a mess all over the stove, especially if it's milk.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
love that metaphor. I think that will be helpful for people. Yeah. Well, I said, are there other resources that, you turn to? One of them I know is psilocybin. Do we want to maybe talk about, how we both feel that psilocybin can help facilitate um, some transitional transformation for couples at this stage of their life? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll let you go first.
Yeah, and it's a really wonderful thing to actually pair with this energy work because, as your energy rises, essentially, you have you have more options. You're able to overcome your blocks, and you can be again. You have more access to whatever it is you want to experience. But
Mhm,
and what psilocybin can also do is help you see those blocks more clearly
mhm,
without that fear.
mhm,
So it really can help you recognize that, oh, um, where I'm feeling this forgiveness for this person, and I can see that that is what is holding us back from connecting more deeply. And I now can see where they were coming from, and I can
mhm.
approach them with a lot more love and acceptance. So it can help you just get past all that stuff,
Yeah,
get you through the mud to see things more clearly and to see things with love. And I think that that is tremendously healing for
yes.
couples.
Yeah, no, I fully agree, obviously. Yeah, and I feel like what it also does for a lot of folks is it allows you to also see your role in things, but from a place that is not defensive, is not rooted in shame or guilt, but really almost like a lot of people describe, a lot of my clients and myself included, describe feeling like separate from their egos, right? Some people experience what they call ego death. And others just say, I was able to kind of see myself from a distance with loving eyes, almost like your child self, right? And like be able to see, oh, look where I need to heal, look where I need to grow. Oh, I see how I contributed to this dance with my partner, this dance of resentment and maybe, whatever it is, right? So, um, and I think that is what I found to be also so transformational for people is being able to really take accountability, because when we take accountability then we do feel like we have the power to change things, right?
Absolutely. And I think probably every couple that I have ever seen at least starts out saying, if
Right.
they would only change that one thing, then everything would be fine. And the truth is, is that um, that never works. And you both have a part to play.
Hmm.
And once you can own that, that's when things start to shift. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. I They can take care of their side of the street, I can take care of my side of the street, and then we can come together.
Yeah.
And that's what really enables people to come together. And then, of course, doing the psilocybin, it is so self-focused, in a
Hmm.
good way,
Yeah.
and it really does help you to see things clearly for yourself.
No, 100%. I mean, I'll share my own personal kind of story with that is with my current partner, and we had been dating for a couple of year about a year and a half, I guess, at this point in our relationship, and we had done psilocybin together. And it was not our first time doing it together, but this particular evening we just, it was a beautiful, beautiful experience and evening. And we was afterwards, and I was in the kitchen. I was coming down, and I was in the kitchen chopping up vegetables and things, preparing some food for us. And I just had, because I knew I was falling in love with this person. And, but it felt scary as this, after I was married for 20 years and went through a divorce and all the things, right? And doing a lot of growth on myself. But um, I was afraid, like, I was of this mindset, like, oh, I don't want to tell him I love him first because I wasn't sure he was ready to say it back. And, but I had this epiphany, like, I, like, what? if I really love this person, why shouldn't I say that? And if I'm only saying that in order to hear it back, then is that really love, right? And really recognizing that um like I wanted to own my feelings. I wanted to be accountable for them and not play these kind of games. And I knew that if by leaning in, that would create the trust also on his side. And I knew in the end it would work, right? Like I just knew instinctively, but I had never thought of it that way prior. Like in the past, in my 20s and my 30s, like I would have never, I would have wanted to know I was going to hear it back. And if I didn't hear it back, it probably would have sent me spinning into some deep, dark insecurities about my worth, right?
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, a lot of people find, they might not come right out of a session first time with this abundance of self-worth and self-love, but if they put the work in and integration and continue to really focus and grow on themselves, grow themselves, I think that is one of the biggest, beautiful gifts of psilocybin. And without self-love, you can't fully show up for another, right?
Yeah, and I think that that's something that different people have different opinions on. But
Mm.
I think that self love really does help a lot, and it sure does make life better.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the idea that, yeah, we can't change other people. That became also really clear to me after doing several psilocybin journeys. That really the only thing we have control of is ourselves, and that is very freeing because then, in my mind, is like, okay, great, like I get to control what happens in here and in my heart and my mind, um, and really recognize that if I lean in, then maybe that other person, I'll get the response I'm looking for, right?
Yeah.
9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how much time are we? I don't even know. I could talk for hours, but I know I'm trying to keep these, professional. Um, so what else, would you like to say about how you see, this energy work and psilocybin working so cohesively together for couples, specifically at this stage of life, and um, some other benefits of doing these things together?
Yeah. I mean, I think that one of the most important things that we can get out of doing coaching or therapy or psilocybin work is increased self awareness. And I think,
Mm,
both of those tools are invaluable for that. They can really help us hold up a mirror to
mhm,
ourselves and help us see so much about ourselves, not only how we're showing up, but our belief systems,
mm,
and are those working for us? How are we really showing up for ourselves? How we are we showing up in our relationships? What are we expecting from other people? And is that really fair?
mm,
Um, all of these things can, all of those issues are things that both psilocybin and energy work and coaching can all help with.
mhm,
Um, and when we are self aware, we've got that a really good picture of ourselves. And I don't know that we can ever be 100% self aware. I think that's an ongoing journey.
yeah,
I think the more work we do there, the more empowered we are in order
mhm,
to decide, is this what we want to, how we want to live our lives? Is this what we want to feel? This what we want to experience? And so it really helps us um, to build our lives in the way that we really want.
yeah. And how, I mean, I think another thing that happens at this stage of life with couples is how that vision for the next chapter and kind of creating that together, because I think there is some freedom in, like, usually at that stage of life a lot of people are a little bit, more financially secure, um, have more options available to them, and so uh, talk to me a little bit about how you help couples navigate that and really creating like their dream together and feeling really empowered to do that as a team.
Yeah, I think that having a shared vision really is important for couples. And when people don't have that, then it can be really hard to feel like a team. Like, where are we even
Mm,
going? So
mhm.
yes, having a vision is really important. And it really depends on what stage of life a couple is
Sure.
in.
Yeah.
So for a couple in their 30s, I might approach it a little different from one who is in their 60s. But looking down the road and saying, what do we want our lives to look like in 5, 10, 20 years?
Mhm.
And what can we start doing now to make that a reality? And I really help them flesh that out. So getting really down to the details. It might be just having those conversations and writing some things out. It might actually be creating a vision board for some people, having that visual element paired with the kind of the written or the verbal part of it can really help to activate the brain and make your brain it gets more into your unconscious. And
Right.
when that happens, then you start manifesting.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think manifesting is like this magical thing that happens. I actually think it's something that we work on. And I think that really does help us work on it.
Yeah, I feel like it's once we set an intention and really kind of change our mindset about something, I feel like our subconscious works in unison, right? Our sub because we love to be right. Our egos want to be right. And so if we kind of can shift where we think we want to go or what we want to, how we want to live our lives, I feel like life will help you out and help you get there. If you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and there is so much information coming at us all the time. And so we have a choice of what we pay attention to.
Hmm.
And if you can, again, train your subconscious and your brain to really focus on these things, it's going to start looking for those opportunities and again create that reality for you.
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel like a lot of, it's we've been talking about midlife couples, but again, to your point, you said I'm glad you brought up other age groups because I think, this work that we're doing together could be applicable for any couple that is looking to strengthen their relationship, deepen their intimacy, and really just, work on growing together. Um, but so what I lost my train of thought, but what I wanted to ask you about was shoot, I lost my train of thought. This happens. Especially in menopause. um I find that like a lot of couples, when we get into the daily grind, that's what I wanted to say. And you were talking about information coming at us. And especially if you're raising kids and you're both working, and you have full lives, we don't practice enough presence with ourselves and stillness with ourselves. But I definitely find that couples often don't do that together as well. And then once you get to a point where you have that time and that stillness, it can feel very awkward and uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
today, because we have so many easy distractions and things to numb us or take our time and energy away, it's very easy to just ignore that and keep yourself busy, even when you could be making those connections and finding that stillness. Um, yeah, what are your
Absolutely.
thoughts on that? Like with the couples you see, and how do you? Because that's always my biggest piece of advice to my clients, whether they're individuals or couples, is find a stillness practice for yourself going forward. And it sounds so easy, and if you're a high achiever, like a lot of type A, successful people, quote unquote successful, um, it sounds like you're like, yeah, okay. Like, really? Like 2 minutes of stillness in my morning is going to make a difference? Um, but it's hard for people when they sit down and try to do it, right? Um, Especially women, I think, I find we carry a lot of things in our head and we live in this space up here a lot of the day. And so trying to really be present and be quiet with ourselves feels very uncomfortable when you start.
Yes, it can. And I'm a really big proponent of meditation, although I know it's not necessarily for everybody.
Mhm. Right.
And so, and I struggle to do it regularly, even though I believe in it so strongly. So I get it.
Yeah.
Really, really do get it.
Guilty
Um,
as charged. Yeah, I don't yeah, not every day. It's hard.
and yet it really does help with so many things. But again, one is that self awareness.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, and for couples, along similar lines, is that we're always pulled by this or that in our lives, and we always will be. There'll always be something else, and yet, what are your priorities in your life?
Mhm.
And my hope for couples is that their partner is at least in the top three,
Right, yeah. Agree.
and it's okay if it's not number one. I mean, I think that it's perfectly healthy to be maybe I'm number one because if I can't take care of myself, then I can't be there for somebody else.
Mhm.
It might be that your spirituality is
Mhm.
number two or maybe number three, but hopefully, yeah, your relationship's in there. And it's like once you've decided it, yes, this is a priority. Okay, so how are you going to live that? How are you going to make that a priority?
Yeah.
Can you take just 10 minutes a day to really connect with your partner? Where you're not doing something, you're just being together. Maybe
Yeah.
have breakfast together or have coffee together or spend 10 minutes before you go to sleep just checking in, like, how are you doing?
Yeah. No,
That
100%.
can really go a long way in building up that foundation in a relationship that we all need.
Mhm. 100%. Yeah, I think and I get it, we get it. We all live busy lives. I remember those days when I had little kids and a full-time job and chores around the house. You fall into bed exhausted and then you and your partner just, like night. And that's okay sometimes, but when you get into the habit of that and you forget to reset and go, wait, what's priority here? Yeah.
And relationships do have an ebb and flow.
Sure.
And that's okay, but it's always about coming back, making sure you come back together and not letting it go too long.
Yeah.
Because we can take our relationships for granted and think that, oh, we're married, we love each other, we'll be fine. And I
Mhm.
find that the couples who do that end up regretting it because even those relationships um, do degrade over time without intentional effort.
Yeah. Well, and I 100% agree about, and I also like, especially for women, I think we get into the trap of being mom. If you're a mom, if you have children and you're a mom, like I feel like a lot of us make the mistake of putting our kids first. And looking back on my life, I realize putting your partner first is actually, that's the foundation. It's like if your foundation has a crack in it, you're not going to build another story, right? You gotta fix your foundation first, and keeping that relationship, other than the one with yourself or with God or whoever you might believe in, um, you know, that's the foundation. You got to keep that solid.
Yeah.
And yeah, so gosh, what else do we want to say? I know
I have
what
one
do we
thing
want
that
to say in closing? Yeah.
yeah. The other thing I want to say is, we talk about how psilocybin comes into play here and how
Hmm.
this can help couples. And, the beautiful thing about psilocybin is that, even though we don't have control over it, we can't say we want this to be experience or to be our experience. We can set our intentions
Hmm.
around it. And couples can have a unified intention around what they want to experience. And I find in those that I work with, 99% of the time, they do end up having an experience that aligns with those intentions that they
Hmm.
set. So you might, as a couple, say, we really want to work on deepening our bond.
Hmm.
And that's what you set as your intention. And so that is more likely to give you an experience where you learn something about how to do that.
Yeah, but it's often not in the way that you imagine, right?
Sure.
Like
Mhm.
I think a lot of times with clients, that's their surprise after. It's like, oh, this is not at all what I was expecting. And sometimes they don't see the connection to their intention right away. It takes a few months. But I've heard from past clients, they'll send me an email out of the blue and like, oh my gosh, I just figured it out. Like I just, or I had this insight that came to me today, like, oh, it was about my dad, like
Right.
it's whatever the thing was. But so yeah, I just want to say, like, with psilocybin, you know, majority find answers and relief for what they're intending, but it often is a winding path. It's not like you're going to come out with all the answers and it's a one and done. It's not
Right.
like
Oh,
that.
okay. So all I need to do is take
Right.
the
Yeah.
step here. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes you got to go through the hard stuff first.
Yeah.
I think that's also, I think what is so wonderful and beautiful about these plants is that they have a way of helping bring to the surface what we've been avoiding possibly a lot of our lives, because we thought it would be too painful or too difficult, or that we wouldn't be able to overcome it, or whatever the thing is, right? But they do really have a beautiful way of kind of giving these things to you gently so that you can start to unpack it. But you got to keep doing the work after. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just
Yeah.
the beginning of the journey.
Yeah. So I would invite anyone who's out there listening and is part of a couple, or even if you're not, if you are interested in learning more about our Align and Thrive Couples Retreat, please, feel free to reach out, follow, like, however, all the ways. We will be sure to put Karen's information as well in our notes and everything with the podcast. But Karen, what would you like to say in closing? Anything you want to say to anybody out there?
You know, I think that we have become increasingly disconnected in
Mhm.
our lives and our society, and but it doesn't have to be that way. We can
Yeah.
connect with ourselves, with our partners, and with something beyond ourselves. And it doesn't have to be, in a certain order. It doesn't have to. You don't have to say I have to connect with myself first before I can connect with my partner. No,
Mhm.
any way can be a way in, but there
Mhm.
is a way in. All you need
Yeah.
to do is to reach out and get some support.
Yeah. Very well said. Thank you. Yeah. And thank you for your time, and thank you for joining me on this new venture and this new podcast. I really appreciate it. I'm grateful.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I'm excited about, getting to work together more and more in the future and collaborate more. So,
Yeah,
all
me
right.
too. Me too. All
Well,
right.
thank you, everybody. And thanks for tuning in to another episode of Beyond the Dose. I'm Michelle Harrell with Purple City Experience, and wishing everybody a great day.